In 2010, Qatar was the surprise winner of the FIFA vote to stage the 2022 World Cup. A decision that brought criticism from people who believed that the tournament was ensnared in a tangled web of scandals. It was difficult to come to a unanimous decision on how Qatar, a country with the average daytime summer temperature of about 40 degrees, was an ideal environment for the most famous sporting event in the entire world. Even though Qatar was allowed to move this event to their winter season, this would have disrupted the football schedules in the Northern Hemisphere. And so, Qatar retained the endorsement of the FIFA family to hold the World Cup despite the criticism. And I know you have probably heard something about the many controversies swirling around this year's edition of the World Cup. Everything from allegations of corruption and bribery during the bidding process, to accusations that Qatar is using the event to sportswash its name of human rights abuses. But if you've not heard any of them, then worry less and be glued, as we are about to dive into some of the major controversies of the 2022 World Cup. Controversy number 1. Qatar bid was marred with allegations of bribery and corruption. Over the past years, FIFA officials and others, various from other organizations, have been accused of accepting bribes to guide the World Cup to Qatar. Dozens of FIFA officials have received bans from the organizations with allegations linked to corruption. A good example is the former head of the European soccer, Michael Platini, who was arrested back in 2019 during an investigation into a $2 million deal connected to his efforts to bring the World Cup to Qatar. Surprisingly, even the former FIFA president, Blatter, was accused, although he denied any wrongdoing. These preliminary corruption allegations turned out to be just the tip of the iceberg though. The UK-based Sunday Times in 2014 reported on a series of leaked emails and documents showing that the prominent Qatar soccer official and former executive FIFA official Mohammed bin Hammam had allegedly paid millions of dollars to the FIFA officials. Without forgetting the fact that bin Hammam had already received a lifetime ban from FIFA in 2011 after being charged with corruption. As such, corrupt or not, the choice for Qatar seemed to be a bit self-servicing. This is because FIFA's choice to host the World Cup in Qatar opens the door to new market shares in the Middle East region. Furthermore, Qatar's big-pocketed bosses are attractive business partners for FIFA in the future. However, the allegations and investigations have really made the public lose trust and confidence in FIFA and its Qatari officials. Controversy number 2. The tournament infrastructure has been built on the backs of low-paid migrant workers. The selection of Qatar to hold the 2022 FIFA World Cup brought cheers and happiness in the streets of Doha, being the first World Cup edition to be held in the Arab world. However, Qatar is the smallest nation to ever host this complex international event that requires the infrastructure to hold a huge number of people. At just 4,471 square miles, Qatar lacked the hotels, highways, and stadiums needed to stage the tournament. With that in mind, and being granted the great opportunity to host the World Cup, Qatar had to spend about $220 billion to make this event a success. They even went a milestone ahead to source migrant workers who make up 90% of its labor force. These migrant employees were employed through a labor system known as kafala, a system that tethered workers to a client through specific binding contracts. However, the horrors of the system have rapidly increased in preparations for the World Cup. Through an investigation carried out in 2021 by The Guardian, it was reported that more than 6,500 migrant workers from 5 South Asian countries had died in Qatar since 2010. Furthermore, workers interviewed by Amnesty International admitted that they were enduring a harsh working environment from wage theft, excessive working hours, dangerous working and living conditions, as well as the heat. On the contrary, FIFA and Qatar disputed the number, saying that there are only 3 people who have died because of direct work on the World Cup construction sites, and 37 due to non-work. Since the selection, Qatar has introduced a set of workers' welfare standards to create new protection for workers and a state-funded insurance and support fund for workers. The funds, surmounting about $440 million, were for compensating workers along with the families of those who have died and endured abuses that came with the construction of stadiums and other infrastructures. Controversy number 3. Qatar alleged use of the tournament to sportwash its record of human rights abuses. Sportswashing is a general term used to refer to the efforts by repressive governments to use prestigious sporting events to burnish their reputation. It was coined by human rights activists back in mid-2010s. This year's World Cup is a good example of sportwashing. In the past years, Qatar has been criticized by international human rights groups for its tight laws concerning LGBTQ people and women. Sex between the same gender, like men, is punishable by up to 7 years in prison, and those who instigate others to commit an act of sodomy or adultery could face up to 3 years imprisonment. Advocates report that LGBTQ Qataris are subject to widespread police harassment, intimidation, and imprisonment. However, the World Cup organizers said that LGBTQ fans were welcomed and safe at the tournament, but this is not the case for Qatari activists, who continue to fear for their visitors' safety. In a statement to NPR, the Qatar embassy just urged all visitors to appreciate and respect their culture in Qatar as a Muslim country. In addition to that, Qatar imposed sweeping restrictions on journalists who travel to the country to cover the World Cup. This made the human rights groups feel like it will have a severe, chilling effect on the media coverage of the event. So, what is your take on this? Do you think Qatar is trying to build up its reputation by hosting the greatest sporting event in the world? Food for thought. Controversy number 4. Extraordinary lengths. Qatar has gone just an extra mile to stage the World Cup, spending more than $100 billion on infrastructure only. With the hot weather conditions of the state of around 30 degrees in the daytime, they have invented a new design of building the 8 stadiums with air conditioned to at least 24 degrees. Surprisingly, 7 of the 8 stadiums are newly built, with even one temperature venue that will be deconstructed and repurposed after the World Cup. Further, to move patrons around venues, they have created the Doha Metro Railway supplemented by a new bus transit system. With the addition of about 11 new luxurious hotels just prior to the World Cup, the volume of rooms across Qatar has drastically increased. However, this being not enough for nearly 3 million fans and visitors, they have gone ahead to add to the mix cruise ships, the mini floating hotels, as well as tiny portable cabins and tents in the fan village. In addition, FIFA promised that this year's World Cup will be carbon neutral, the first one in the competition's history. This has been made possible by the tenfold green spaces around Doha, including over 1 million new trees. To offset the tournament's total emission of pollution, they have also deployed recycled shipping containers in stadium construction, and as well as the planned donation of temporary seating in several arenas. Controversy number 5. Temporary adjusting local norms. It is in every person's interest to enjoy themselves once in a while. Qatar, however, is staging this global event through a local prism. Being the first Muslim country to host the World Cup, it is doing it in its own worldview. The World Cup has been associated with the demonstrative consumption of alcohol, and although alcohol is not prohibited in Qatar, drinking in public is against the law. However, this position has been modified a little when it comes to the World Cup. Alcohol will be sold in the stadium compounds, but not during games. As such, fans will have to quench their first 3 to 4 hours before kickoff and 1 hour after kickoff. Further, Qatar's fan zone with a capacity of about 40,000 will sell alcohol in the evening hours up to late into the night. So, watching evening games while taking beer is feasible. And for the first time with the World coming to Qatar, the country is adjusting its local norms. And with all this information comes now the major question at hand. Is the World Cup likely to change as a result of all of these controversies? In recent past years, FIFA has tried to adapt to new ways with a series of reforms to curb corruption and increase transparency and accountability within its organization. Even the fans and players have tried to express themselves about the controversy surrounding this tournament in many ways. For example, in September, a group of European federations, including England, Germany, and France, plan to have some of their players wear rainbow armbands during their game in a notion to protest Qatar's treatment of its LGBTQ citizens. We are yet to see if these controversies will bear any fruit in the future. Well, that marks the end of our video. If you liked the video, make sure to check out more on our channel, or click the subscribe button on your screen right now. And until the next video, take care.